Hi, Melissa. Thanks for being here with us today. My
Thanks.
name is Taylor Spaziani, and I'm here with the Sexual Health Alliance. Here today, we have Melissa Novak. She is a sex therapist and also a cognitive behavioral therapist. Melissa, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and your career?
So I am currently in a sort of interesting place now in my career. I knew very early on that I always wanted to be a sex therapist and was working as a medical social worker in Florida because I couldn't find any sort of position. It was before the time that private practice was allowing for unlicensed clinicians to come in. And then the housing crisis, financial crisis of 2008 took me and my partner to Chicago. So then I uh, started doing this other type of like in-home therapy for people that were in public housing, which was really wonderful, but again, not full on like my dream of sex therapy and like private practice. And so, and I also just felt like consistently, I didn't have from my school a conceptualization of clients. Like I had a lot of needs and a lot of know what that actually meant in the therapeutic relationship and how to be most effective. So I felt like um, my understanding and my training was pretty incomplete. And I don't know what happened, or the universe or something aligned, and I ended up finding a fellowship through a local Chicago clinic, and they were doing a CBT fellowship, and I immediately fell in love. The idea of a structure, holding myself accountable, holding patients accountable to the change that they're wanting to facilitate. Um, and then I decided to open my private practice. So I opened in 2013 in Chicago, and have since hired 3 awesome humans to join me and focus really heavily on treating anxiety disorders, personality disorders, and sexual dysfunction. I was certified, oh man, I think I was certified in 2013, maybe too, 2014, somewhere in there. And then went on to become a certified supervisor as well. Actually, I have my certification just renewed. I was certified in 2014. Um, and so then essentially I decided that I wanted to do something a little different, and I started to teach, seeing the clientele that I saw consistently for, you know, what was it, like 4 or 5 years every week. I wanted something a little different. So I started teaching, and that has been really rewarding. Since then, my partner found a job in Atlanta, and so now I commute. So I live in Atlanta, but I commute to Chicago, which is why scheduling was so challenging, because I don't always know where I'm going to be. So I fly a lot. That's pretty much my main source of transportation, which is funny because I always wish that I could travel for work, but as a therapist, it doesn't ever seem like that would be something that we do. Um, and so I kind of made it, I guess.
Oh, yeah, that's so impressive. I applaud you for all this travel and hard work. Seems like you've really built your career on a lot of constructive things, and it's really respectable.
Yeah, I like a little variety, you know, a little
Totally. I think it's good to switch it up sometimes,
yeah.
a change of pace. So little fun questions we like to ask. What are 3 of your top bucket list items?
These questions were so hard. I had to sit for a while and write. I was so glad that you like let me know, like, hey, so there's going to be some other questions aside from just talking about therapy, because I can talk very easily and a lot, but I was like, oh my God, I don't
Yeah,
even know.
yeah, we want to get to know you.
So my the things that I thought of, so I have these sort of like short list bucket list items, but then I have these long ones and they're kind of coming to fruition. So one that's coming to fruition, so I didn't put on there, is I'm going to be a beekeeper in March. So I have 2 hives that I'm going to be starting. So I'm going to have my little apiary, and I'm like pretty excited about that. I'm nerding out pretty hard. I've got my like bee journals, and yeah, it's pretty obnoxious. I'm like the most annoyingly enthusiastic bee person, but apparently that's just like who we are. So, but the actual 3 that I was thinking about, kind of my ideas that I'm really sort of wanting to do, is traveling the US for 1 year in an RV. I really would love to do that.
Yeah.
And maybe getting into Canada too. I mean, North America, let me just say that would be fun. Mexico, I am down. I lived in Mexico for a couple months, and it's one of my favorite places in the world. So that could be fun. I don't know if they'll take my RV, but I would love to do that. So North America, I'm changing it. I would love to live abroad for at least a year. So that's something that's kind of on my docket at some point. And then I also really want to learn to knit socks. So it's like a whole thing. My grandma, she's like my pseudo grandma, came from Germany and just like knitted all the time. And so she would make all of the family socks, and then she would make so many she could like give them to the hospitals and stuff. She would just like churn out these socks. And then she passed away, and I don't know how to knit them. So I just took my first knitting class. I'm knitting a hat. It is the gateway to my sock fantasy. So I am not done with the hat. It is taking me a really, really long time. But I'm trying to kind of just like let that happen. Like knitting just happens, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that with us. That's so
Yeah.
unique to you and something I'll never know about you just from meeting you as a therapist. So that's awesome. I'm really interested in the bees. That's amazing.
Some of my friends are like, you moved to Atlanta and now you garden, knit, and keep bees? Are you 75? Like, what is going on? And I'm like, I don't care. There's 75-year-olds must be living their best life, because
Exactly.
that's how it feels for me.
Exactly. If it brings you happiness.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, a little bit about sexuality, I guess, relating it to your personal life. Who would be your sexual role model?
So I felt like such a sexuality failure, which I don't really believe that that's possible. But I was like, man, I think because I admire and I see so many people, it was hard to pick
Yeah.
sort of like one person. But I am reading Pleasure Activism right now, which was recommended to me by one of my good friends, Angie Gunn in Portland. And I am just like nerding out so hard on this book. So Adrienne Marie Brown, who I think is like on a sabbatical journey through Southeast Asia, just like doing it. I think that author has just really been inspiring me, and just sort of exudes pleasure, which is kind of this mentality I'm really trying to, and I don't know, soulfulness that I'm really trying to cultivate in my life more. So I'm gonna say her for now.
Cool.
And
Yeah.
I think they go by she, but I'm not sure. So I apologize if I was
Oh,
wrong.
it's a great recommendation. Thank you. A little bit, kind of, you touched on that in that answer, but what are some of your everyday values just as a human being?
So, my big value, probably that I think a lot of people, at least that I always sort of go, the one thing that you can say about me, whether you like me or don't like me, is my integrity. So, I'm a very honest person. I'm a very consistent person and dependable person. So, I say what I say, and I will do that. So, I think that is probably my biggest value. And then from there, I really try to cultivate compassion and grace. So the idea of really giving compassion and also accepting compassion, and giving grace and accepting grace. And the one that I'm trying to cultivate, which kind of all my weekly affirmations are sort of centered around, is patience. I'm not very patient. So I really am trying to sort of um, really work on challenging the striving grind kind of mentality. And there's a lot of really cool work that's coming out on decolonizing grind and the concept of grind. So that's something, along with pleasure, but cultivating some patience is a big one for me.
Yeah, for sure. No, I really feel your warmth from all of that, and I appreciate that. Thanks for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Moving into the field a little bit, what do you think is some of the worst advice you've heard people give out?
Oh, this question. Um, I, for me, uh, the worst, I mean, aside from just like really egregious, like, you can't get pregnant in a hot tub kind of weird stuff that seems weird. And that's hard because I know not everybody is on the same um, sexual health journey or had the same amount of sexual health. But I've been doing this now for um, it's either 20 years, kind of, and so I've heard like a lot of really terrible things, like judgments about birth control use or sexual number of sexual partners.
Yeah,
But I think for our field, the biggest problem that I hear is, and sometimes I even exude it, is really sort of coming from your own place, and um, this idea that your place of growth or your area of interest is the right way. And I can see this on a lot of different places, even for those of us that are super permissive, which I am. I really believe in a lot. There's not really much sexual behaviors or aspects of sexuality that I think are terribly problematic. And at the same time, me having reactions when other people want to contain or restrict or, whatever, that isn't necessarily something I agree with. And I have to remember to like pull myself out of that a little bit
yeah,
more. And I'm a very passionate person. So that's something that I think can be really a hard energy when I disagree with somebody. And so I think if we could all hold a little more space for everybody's perspective, it might be a little bit better. So when somebody's kind of really rooted in theirs, I think that's when they're giving you bad advice.
totally. Super insightful. Um,
Maybe.
definitely.
Or it's just me being a bossy bitch. I don't know. But
No, no, you're great. um, so, the Sexual Health Alliance, you work with us closely. At the Sexual Health Alliance, we provide radical collaboration, provocative dialogue. So, can you tell us a little bit about what radical collaboration looks like to you and what you would like to see others in the field incorporate into their practice a little bit more?
yeah, so for me, I was thinking about radical collaboration just sort of sounds like a lot of voices and a lot of encouragement.
Yeah.
Um, so understanding, everybody's sort of in their own place and their own journey, and trying to figure out what that means. And sometimes people's journeys and places are hard for us to sit through or hard for us to see. So I think this idea of radical collaboration has much more of this like holding space for all of that. And that seems, I don't know, it's something that I struggle with, so I really idealize it. Um, I'm also thinking about, the idea of lowering our defenses. Adrienne Marie Brown writes this idea of how often we refuse or reject change that we did not initiate. So if somebody tells us, oh, maybe you could think about this differently, our reaction can be one of defensiveness or negation rather than consideration. And so it feels a little bit more like radical collaboration would be a conscious effort of trying to lower that defense and holding space before we just go straight to the no.
Totally. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So this is kind of your red carpet moment here.
Yeah.
Uh, Feel free to tell the world what you're working on, what you want us to know, anything that you're doing that's super special right now.
The seeking pleasure is feeling really special and fun. Focusing on trying to make my life really work on and focus on pleasure. Um, Delisha Saw, I think, gave a talk at ASECT last year. She was the opening plenary speaker, and Delisha was just incredible and very inspiring, and part of me starting that journey, but then really kind of continuing to cultivate it has been really, really fun. So I've been really appreciating those voices. The navigating of the two states is kind of this journey of figuring out what that looks like. I am going to start teaching here shortly. In April 1st, I have my first class, and it's going to be a hybrid. So I'm looking at also, so I'm trying to figure out the travel and doing things online and in person.
Right.
Um, also trying to be a better educator. So realizing that education is very different than just lecturing or talking. And so working on my sexuality educator, getting a lot of mentorship and supervision in that is I'm very excited about. And then doing more supervision and training. So the big thing that I'm focusing on, because I travel and I can't do as much client work. And so I do every other week in Chicago seeing clients, but my main sort of professional place right now is doing many more supervisions and are having more supervisees, and that has been such a joy. I have some really incredible humans that I work with, and they're very inspiring and insightful, and we get to do this like really fun work. So that part has been really great. And then doing trainings like the one with Shaw.
Yeah, cool. That's awesome. So speaking of that, see Melissa in Austin on April 17th and 18th. She will be presenting on anxiety and reproductive health in sexuality. You can purchase tickets on our website at www.sexualhealthalliance.com. Just go to the Austin tab and you can buy your tickets there.
Oh,
Thanks so
that's
much, Melissa.